I was recently asked by a client, how do I hire a design team? A lot of founders have worked with designers and might know what good design looks like, but they aren't necessarily designers themselves and don't want to make some mistakes when hiring. So today we'll be talking about what should you consider when hiring designers, what makes a good design team, and why getting the right people matters to your product. So let's set the scene a little bit. We're not talking about established teams here growing bigger, but maybe you're at the point where you're at the start. Let's assume you've proven product market fit. You've reached the point financially, importantly, where you can start to bring in the talent to guide the company to world domination in the next 3 to 5 years. Your first steps from a design perspective. Start your search for a strong design lead now. Build a team of less senior designers underneath them. And importantly, looking at designers, always ask for a portfolio. Your most senior design hires will be absolutely crucial. Think of these as the Michelangelo of your Sistine Chapel, turning your functioning product into a heavenly user experience that has people queuing outside the door and even bragging to their mates that they've been inside. They're often the hardest to recruit, but important for the performance of your team as a whole. I mean, you might already have a designer in your midst. It's hard to imagine you've got this far without some design help, but can early design talent step up? Will that contract designer want to go permanent? Or do you need to bring in someone with new, proven experience? While it's tempting to start with more junior hires to get the ball rolling and perhaps save on budget, your more senior hires will undoubtedly want to unpick all of their work when they arrive. Which means the longer you run without strong design leadership, the more legacy design debt there is to work through as the product matures. I suppose it's like sitting down and letting the work experience intern start your haircut, and assuming the senior stylist is happy coming in and putting the finishing touches on. Chances are they're going to disagree with those early snips and, may even want the hair to grow back before they start again. I finish with this analogy, but effectively it's going to cost you time. Now, graduates might seem an appealing way to get started and will certainly come with fresh ideas, but only take on grads if you're able to give them strong design oversight and mentorship. You have to be willing to invest in their education and be patient with their growth. Now, when you're actually reviewing design candidates, a portfolio is a must-have. Unlike some other roles, a CV alone will not tell you enough. It doesn't tell you anything more useful than say, a LinkedIn profile. Now, some candidates will be unable to show much previous work. This is often due to NDAs, but it also might mean that they haven't worked on anything that's actually gone live. This isn't necessarily a red flag, as there's a bunch of great product designers out there who've only worked on, say, early stage propositions that never see the light of day. But most great candidates will have seen the grisly business end of pushing a product out of the door. And, when time and takeaways are running out and you have a deadline for launch, it's essential for someone to know what they're doing. Let's first talk about team shape. There's no ideal team shape, but it's important to think in squads, and you'll be able to build a model that scales. I assume a lot of people know what squads are, but so we're all on the same page. We mean mini teams that each tackle a different product feature or aspect of your product build. They're made up of different disciplines, but include a designer within each. Now, the number of designers and squads you'll need is dependent on many factors, but you should aim to create design progress that matches or slightly exceeds the pace of engineering. With that model in mind, we can simplify things. In a small growing team, you need designers with a broader skill set than purely UX, UI, or service design. You likely don't have the luxury of carrying a specialist at this point. You need great hybrid product designers that blend user experience skills, user interface design polish, with an understanding of the systems and processes that make a digital product tick. There are 3 key types of product designer hire you initially need to worry about. Now let's start with product designers. The product designer will translate your product vision into the build-ready user experience, and they'll be testing and iterating that to make it better. Let's say you are running a kitchen. Think of these as super talented line cooks. They are preparing the dishes, they're chopping, cooking, and seasoning, but all under the watchful eye of more senior chefs. Now, your product designers are responsible for plotting navigation patterns, looking at end-to-end flows, the different states and variants required within there, and thinking about different user journeys. They're designing the screens that are fundamentally linked to design system components, ensuring consistency, and making sure that they're handed over to development in a way that has them built in the correct fashion. Preparing usability testing is another key area, and they're making prototypes and then iterating designs based on that feedback. They're working shoulder to shoulder with the product managers, developers, and others to ensure that designs actually meet user needs and, importantly, acceptance criteria. Now, moving on to your product design lead. As mentioned before, hiring a really strong design lead should be your number one priority. This kind of takes the longest to find that person in my experience. Now, this is a more elevated position than a product designer, but that's their background and they're still very hands-on. Continuing the kitchen analogy, think of this as the sous chef. They're number two in the kitchen, they can run the service, they can ensure consistent quality across every dish, but importantly, they get cooking when needed. Now, your product design lead is someone that needs to sit across squads. Initially, they might sit in a squad, but they need that space to have visibility across everything that's going on. That means that they can ensure functional and visual consistency while setting the design direction, and often owning the right to permissions for the design system. They can take a strategic look ahead and also a strategic look at the holistic architecture, the patterns that you are using. And they can ensure the voice of the customer informs all of the design decisions that you make. Finally, we have your head of design. Now, while the cooks in the kitchen may be thinking about the next service, top-tier restaurants have an executive chef, and they're looking at the menu, and they're looking at the vision from a long-term perspective. I promise that's the end of the kitchen analogy. Now, this role can help join up the wider brand across different platforms, so you're not saying one thing through social ads, only for customers to experience something very different when they're down in the bowels of your product flows. Now, this isn't an essential role from day one, but it can be really important as your business scales, and a really useful way of connecting the value of design with the profitability of the product. Now, why should I care about all of this? Let's think about a design culture. A healthy design culture within an organisation reaps all sorts of benefits. Primarily, it breeds customer centricity, and it instills an appreciation for the value of user experience in relation to the company's overall success. Don't overlook the commercial value of good design. Also, thinking about the skill set that a strong designer brings, they'll bring processes for problem solving that have much wider applications. And a connected design culture can help consistently drive brand through every interaction and platform. Above all though, when it comes to building a team, good design culture is key to attracting that talent in the first place and retaining top design talent, and ensuring everyone is producing their best work for a product that they actually care about.